First is I had a question about how do you record weather conditions? Um, and you stumped me for that. Then I asked Jonathan, and he reminded me how it's done, and so I slapped my head and said, "Of course, that's how you do it." Okay, so under record work, so we've got this late spring application that we have recorded. If I wanted to put in weather conditions, I'd hit the little expansion icon here on the left, and if I scroll down, here is the weather here. So I manually entered this yesterday. You can come in and edit this, and then you just go ahead and save it and close. And that's how you track it. Um, it's tracked automatically through the app, but if you are doing the manual record and you have to capture the weather conditions, you have to do it for each service. It does not memorize that and apply it and then you just tweak it if there's something different. You have to go through each record and manually put in that information. Another reason why using the app can make a lot of sense for capturing information that the office needs. Okay, one other thing we didn't look at was what happens with general notes. So general notes, and I think we did point this out in the app yesterday, that when you're in a job, there's a place where you could add general notes. So a general note could be, who knows, brown spots in turf. And so you would hit save here. Okay, now we're going to start this job. This is Donald Trump. So if I go to say record work mobile here, and there. So here we've got Donald Trump. We started the job, and you notice over here you have a little balloon icon with an eye. That means, as you see there, this job has general notes. Please view, and you view a couple different places. One, they're down here and they're creating a to-do. The program will help you not lose track of issues at the customer's property, including potential upsells. And so you'll see it here, and I'm going to leave it there for a moment. You can also come here under Donald Trump to job notes, and you see it down here. And this will be preserved in history when this job is finalized there. Finally, if I come back to the little home page here, open link in new tab, you've got this orange bar that's indicating I've got some to-dos. I've got a bunch of them, and I scroll down here to the bottom, way down here. So here it is, Donald Trump brown spots in turf. Now, these are distributed to you or to your organization based on settings. If we come over here to settings and then to company info and scroll down a bit to the settings, here is the assigned general notes to. And this would be all the users, and you could then select users to include, and they would all then see this to do. Now, this also applies to notification that if you email an estimate and the customer accepts it, these folks also get notified of that. Keep in mind that this is not strictly general notes from the field type, but other to-do related topics that come back in, like from an estimate or from the field for that. All right, so that's one thing I forgot to show you yesterday were the general notes as they're tied to the app. Now back here, so let me go back into the app and finish Donald. Okay. So now refresh this to see the update. And sure enough, there he is. Okay, this next bit I think is really cool. you've populated the workbank, and so here's everyone on the schedule. But let's say lawn maintenance, which is mowing, that it's raining and there's going to be a rain delay for lawn maintenance, and you want to let the customers know. There's this message customer option here, and when you click on it, it's showing everyone um, on the schedule. And you can select a particular job, so we'll select lawn maintenance here, and then show records. Now we're seeing all of our lawn maintenance accounts. I select all, then I come down to the bottom of this, and I hit create email. So scrolling up to the top, you can create email templates, and that's done under customize. But when you can then have a rain delay template, for instance. So you just select it. This would then auto-populate. You might tweak the dates or some specific information here. And then hitting send email will send this email. Um, so that's how you would send a notification to customers. Now, as I said, you go to customize here. And over here are the, oops, where is this list? Oh, I apologize. It's not under customize. It's under customers, marketing, email, daily work message. So this is then where you could create templates for your for the different ones. You might have a standard way of sending. You're obviously able to create the email on the fly if you need to. Okay, I had a question. How would you do a job change when entering work? Bruce, I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about. You can, if you're in record work, you can add a charge, you can add a job, but I'm not sure what you mean by a job change. You can't really edit the job that's on the schedule here. I mean, well, you can edit the price, but otherwise you can't change much of the job from this screen. For instance, the description is pretty well set there. Um, okay, and Debbie asked, would you do this letter, but only for a particular crew? So we'll go back to get work, and we come into the message customer, and then you'd have your crews here. So you could say, okay, I want to just do the maintenance crews, and then you can hit show records, and now you're just seeing what's on those crews. So that's how you could narrow it down to the crew. Okay, Bruce, we are not going to cover that right now, so we'll have to look at that offline, or if we have time at the end of the class, because that's a little bit more involved. There is a job change option in the program for snow removal, which is one way of doing different levels of snow that you might charge customers different prices for different levels, 1 to 4, 4 to 8, etc. So we'll look at that at the end as we have time. Okay, so message customer. Another thing under the daily and get work that can be useful is the remove unpaid work function. So when I click here, it's going to tell me on this schedule who owes me money. So it's taking a bit of time because I have a big AR. So here now are the customers, and here's the amounts overdue and what they owe for. And you can sort by this, and you can say, okay, I don't want to provide services if they owe me more than $1,000. So you could come in here and just check these off. Now yours list would be much more manageable. But when you check them off, and you can also select, okay, let's say 90 days or more. So these are the people who are way past due. You can then check them off. So we'll just check all, and then I could uncheck a couple of the smaller amounts if I chose to, and then scroll down the bottom, and you've got some options here. Put checked jobs on hold. So that means all these jobs are going to go on hold. I will not do them again because I have not been paid. I can remove them from the schedule. I can also message the checked customers. So I click here, and it will then bring up a messaging, again an email, so I can then send an email to them that I can do all jobs, or I can put a tag in here as far as what jobs are past due, and they've got other tags here, so I can put the customer name, their outstanding balance, a payment link to the portal, so you can craft the email here to send to your customers, and then you can send it to them and they can then hopefully pay and get caught up. This way it can kind of stop the bleeding, as you might say, in terms of providing work for people who have not been paying for you. Okay, all right, so, okay, Greg, is this only if you use ClipPay, or does it pull from QuickBooks as well? Um, Greg, I'm not sure what, oh, you mean for this remove unpaid work? No, good question. I believe it will cover all unpaid work, so it will pull information from QuickBooks because, uh, like Greg, let me think about that. Thank you for asking. Let me make a note of that because I don't want to give a shooting from the hip answer. Okay, so thanks. I've made note of that. So we may look at that when we look at billing with QuickBooks, see if what we see there. Okay, now, and Debbie, we will look at the billing questions momentarily. Okay, so we looked at message customers, remove unpaid work, weather conditions, and the general notes from the app, and we're ready to start talking about billing. As I mentioned, we are going to be covering billing out of Clip directly, which is this program, and you see this through the word invoice here. And I also have a version where it has QuickBooks. So that's how this one will do the billing when we uh, get to this. So we'll be looking at both of those. In the invoice section here, you've got certain other activities. Invoice, which is this screen, we'll look at first. Single payment, receiving payments, creating a credit memo, processing auto pays, additional charges. Mapping we'll look at on the QuickBooks side, and unpaid invoices, and then more. Um, okay. Oh, for the remove work. Okay, thanks Debbie for clarifying that. Let me go back in and show that to you. So again, in the um, remove unpaid work, here in the upper right, you can then show all customers 30, 60, 90 days or more past due. So this is where you can narrow the results here to those who are more delinquent than others. All right, when you come to invoice, you come to this invoice screen to start with, and you've got some information here that you need to set up. We're going to pretend we're doing the end of January billing. I want to date my invoices for the 31st, and I want then to give them 10 days to pay. So I give them to February 10th here. The cutoff date comes into play only if you come down here and hit print all invoices. And what the cutoff date does, it allows you then to bill for only work that occurred up to the end of the calendar month. In this scenario, if I were to click print all, then I might set this cutoff date to the 31st. And then let's say I get behind and I don't do my billing until February 3rd or 4th, but I've been recording work in February, then this would exclude that February work from the invoice here with the cutoff date. The cutoff date is irrelevant if you come down here, as I recommend, especially while you're new to CLIPitc, print edit individual invoices. This gives you a greater control, as we'll see in a moment. You have options here, statement and invoice. A comment about that. Currently, the only way to generate a statement is through printing. It will not email a statement to customers. That is being worked on by development as we speak. So that will soon change. But currently, if you're emailing bills, those who get an emailed bill will get an invoice. If you're printing, you can print either statement or invoice. A statement will show previous balance, payments, and aging information. Um, Invoices pretty much just show the activity for the month in question. Sort by account number, that means on the screen that comes up, it'll be sorted that way. It's easy to sort by job or by property name and other ways. So this is kind of not as useful as it might be in other circumstances. Include invoice notes. We've talked about invoice notes are generated from the job. Either when you do the job, you can add an invoice note about that specific visit, or it will pull from the job detail screen. Include time in, time out. That is if you are recording start and stop times, it'll put those on the bill. The only real purpose I've seen this used for are for snow removal services, where your contract calls for you to be at a commercial account perhaps before they open, and so you'll need to indicate on the bill when you were there for that. But typically this is not marked. Include property name in description. When we're looking on Monday at setting up customers, you can add properties to a customer. Say you have a customer has some rental properties, and you can set those up under the customer's account. Then when you do the billing, for each of the rental properties, it'll put the name of that location or the name of that property next to each line item, so he can look at the overall bill and see what work was done at which property. Transfer $0 transactions, contract jobs. These are, if you have installment of customers who pay you a set amount, there are certain services included in that installment, in that contract. If you choose this by having that checked, it will then show each visit on the bill for the customer to see, but it'll have a zero amount. Basically, your options are for January, the bill would just show installment for January and whatever the amount. This being checked, it will also list all the January visits, but those will have a zero amount in the amount column because you're not charging on a per visit basis, you're charging the installment. You can include skip jobs in the invoices. You can show per item sales tax, otherwise you'll just see one sales tax total at the bottom of the bill. Include unused materials on the invoice. To be honest, I don't know why you would do that, but someone in programming thought that was a good thing to have. Print statement for overdue customers with no activity. We're doing the January billing in this illustration. What this would do, if checked, if I had a customer where I did work in December, November, October, but not for January, and they owe me money, they're overdue, it will also print their bills. So you have the option of printing everybody past due in addition to those with work the current month. Include statements or invoices to be emailed and printed report. That allows you to, for those customers who are being emailed, to also print a copy of their bill. Print bill to on the invoice. This just makes clearer who they're sending who's getting the bill, the billing address, bill to information, and then also show first property a service is rendered at. For your customers who may only have one property but they have a different property address, this would also place the property address on the bill so they can see clearly where the work was done. Hide quantity, that's how many cuts done to date, for instance, for a service. Print zero balance invoices and statements. That means let's say someone is prepaid and so the bill shows a zero amount, you can go ahead and still print that if you choose to do so. Okay. All right. So then down here in the installment, we want to put the January installment on the bill, and we want to set that for the 31st. Now let me just make an observation. Occasionally we get calls from people who run their billing and the installment is missing. So what you've got is you may put that January's installment, you're going to put it as February 1st. Well, if you had a cutoff date of January 31st here, it won't include the installments because the installments will be on the bill with a February 1st date. So if you put January 31st here, it will not include those installments dated for February 1st. With installments, you're able to process them. You're also able to delete them. So let's go ahead and look next. So I would just want to see if I've processed these already. Well, now I'll go ahead and process them. If they're on there twice, I'll delete them. So then you hit process installment, just telling me I've done it more recently than 25 days. Okay. Then I scroll down and it says 46 records processed. Now this disappears in a moment. Yep, there it goes. And then we come here to print edit individual invoices. All right, so now we have our customers here. We have Acme Properties. We have prices here. They have an installment. In fact, they have two properties, and each of those properties have an installment. So that's why we have two amounts here. Looks like we only did process one January. And then what you can do is you can scroll through this. Now let's say you're noticing, the shoveling is not actually covered by the installment, so I need to provide an amount here. If you click the pencil, you can then come here and you can put in the amount for that. And you could also tweak the description a bit if you want to, and then you come over, click the checkbox to save, and now you've got an updated information there. Okay. All right, so now we're just scrolling through, reviewing, and again, this is why I suggest that you do the print edit individual, because you get a chance to then perhaps make corrections where necessary. This gives you an overview of it, and then when you look and everything seems satisfactory, a couple things. One is you can go in and you can cherry pick what you want to bill. If you have a snow event, you could come in then and cherry pick that and hit print, and it would then just bill what you've checked off. If you do a large cleanup the middle of the month and want to bill it right away for cash flow, you can go in, check it off, and hit print, and it would truly bill that. In older versions of Clip, you could generate a bill mid-month through either mid-month billing or print invoices by date. The trouble with that, and it might be just minor trouble, those line items will reappear when you do your end of month billing. So they're not truly billed yet in the sense that well, I'll just leave it at that. Now here it's truly billed, and when you bill it from this screen, check this off, hit print, it will then start the aging at that time, or at least based on the due date you've got on the previous screen. So this is really more of a true invoice billing system. And also, and we'll look at this in a bit, when you are entering payments, you can apply a payment to a specific invoice, and that, especially with commercial accounts, can then give you a cleaner accounts receivable report, a cleaner record of what's happening with your commercial accounts. That was a little bit more difficult for billing out of the older versions of Clip. If a commercial account called you up and said, oh, you owe you $400, what's that for? In a statement system, that makes as much sense as calling MasterCard and saying, oh, I show a previous balance of $400, what's it for? Because in both cases, it's just the amount that you haven't paid yet. It's not necessarily tied to a specific invoice or a specific transaction. Okay, all right, so let me just kind of step back and recap here. So to do billing, you come to invoice here, create the settings you want here, process installments, and I advise print edit individual invoices. You come in here, then you've reviewed them, you check all and hit print. When you hit print, either like we just did or down here for print all invoices, it now creates a batch. So it's generating this, and I've got 80 to 100 invoices, so it can take a few moments for this to be created. I hit refresh and not quite done yet. Um, and this batch is then where you work from. So also generate, I got a couple of questions. Okay, Nancy, how do you put monthly chemical cost in for individual clients to have them transfer to QuickBooks? We don't have the same chem cost each month. It varies, and not every client will incur the charge, so we manually, okay. What you can do in Clip, so I'll come to this other tab. When you set up your materials, and this can be done when you set up your materials, or when you add a material to a job, or within a specific customer, the material list, and we'll see this how it looks slightly different in QuickBooks, but under mulch here, if you bill through Clip, it says charge material on invoice, yes or no. If you select yes, and again, this can be done at the individual job and customer level, doesn't have to be a default setting here. If you say yes, when the customer is billed for the mulch service, it'll be the bill will have two lines. Mulch service, $400, mulch materials, $250, total $650. So that's what it looks like in Clip without QuickBooks. Now if I go in here to then customize, and this is again the integration with QuickBooks version, so we'll look at this. And then I've got petunias here. Here is the transfer to QuickBooks. So you've got three options. No, don't transfer it. Transfer the information over, but only to reduce inventory. That means if you have your inventory set up in QuickBooks and you use 10 petunias, then when you bill this customer, it will show that you no longer have 100 petunias in stock, you have 90. And then finally, transfer and charge this price. And this means this would create a second line item on the customer's bill for, say, spring color. It'd be petunias and the amount of the petunias there. Okay, so let's go back here and see what's happening with our billing. Okay, one other question here. What if you email some invoices in print and mail others, which needs to be marked off, statement or invoice or both? If you email some and print some, then back in this screen you don't have to have this checked because they're going to be separated anyway. This is checked only if for those customers who are being emailed you also want to print, and it's kind of an all or nothing thing. In one of our older versions you were able to be selective, so you could email and print some customers, just email others, and just print others. You had kind of three categories. Now you only have really kind of two. Everyone is printed, or you only print those who are not being emailed, and the emailed ones are always emailed for this. All right, so okay, all right, Marie, I'm not sure if I understand your questions. Okay, so let me come back to those questions in a bit. So now we hit refresh here, and this is done. You have two options now. Undo batch is what we used to call reverse billing. If I click undo batch, everything that we've billed is going to be back on the list. Currently, if I come back to this list, there's nothing there because I billed it. But if I hit undo batch, then it would all populate back on that list. The next step then would be printing. You go to print here. That pulls up a preview screen. So here's what the statement looks like. Total amount due, previous balance, which is showing paid or unpaid or partially paid invoice numbers here. Payment received would be listed. Here's the balance forward. Here's all the current, subtotal, tax, other overdue balances, and then total amount there. Okay, so you just can scroll through and look at it. You can also hit print here. Here's the print screen. Again, you can go through and review them. And if you hit print here, I don't have a printer, so it just says save as a PDF. You can then go ahead and print them. Notice here's the services rendered at, telling us where it was. In this case, it's the same as the billing address. Um, that's for printing. So the next step is you would then go to either down here it says see invoices to be emailed, or up at the top under more you can click email invoices. Now here are all of my unemailed invoices. You see the date of the invoice here, and you can sort by this column. It shows the status of the invoices. If you wanted to, you could come through here and say, okay, I'm not going to email those that are paid, so you can check those off and hit remove checked. And then again, if you wanted to preview them, you can hit preview all. Unfortunately, this previews all. You can't just cherry pick and look at one customer, and then you go through and do next invoice. And so that's how you could preview. You go back. When you're satisfied, you can come and check all, or you can cherry pick and then come down and hit send, and it will now email those. Having said that, I want to take a little side trip. Under customers, you have this marketing email option, and this is the invoice email we're looking at. You are able to design this with links from the program. Now, as I mentioned, the program's default is to email an invoice, and that can be disconcerting because you want to be able to remind the customer that perhaps they have some past due amounts or past due invoices or bills. Well, what I've done here is I've modified this. So basically the basic email, to view the invoice from Successful Landscaping for, and here's the amount of the invoice. Click on the link below. This invoice link then takes them to the invoice you are currently sending them. You can then add this. Your total amount due is, and this total amount here is drawn from these tags. There is a total balance due tag, and by tag it tags part of the database to pull in this information. By selecting this here, it's showing me how much their total is. Let's say this invoice I'm emailing is for $100. This will say for $100 here, and then here's that specific invoice. But let's say he has $200 of unpaid, then it would show a total amount due is $300. And this other link here is called the invoice overview link. And you could add the text here to view any unpaid or partially paid invoices. Click and then have this link, and that would take them to a page where they can then see a list of their invoices and the status of each invoice: paid, unpaid, or partially paid. This isn't a statement, but it communicates pretty much all of the information you want. It tells them not just the amount of that current invoice, but it tells them what's past due, and it gives them access to the unpaid invoices that they can then open up and see in more detail what they have not paid for. By modifying this email that goes to the customers when you email your invoice, it should cover pretty much whatever ground you need to cover for that. You can also include the payment link or an anonymous payment link if you've signed up for CLIPitc and get credit card payments, to make it easy for your customer. Now, if you've signed up for CLIPitc, then there'll be a payment link actually in each invoice for them to pay. Um, so just that's a little side trip about setting up the invoice email and how it gives you the flexibility not just to refer to what happened in January, but also past due information there. Okay, we have covered processing the bills, printing and emailing, and then the next, there are two logical steps next. One is process auto pays. Whenever you generate a bill, if a customer has authorized you to run their card to pay for it, then you can come here to process auto pays, and here are the customers in this example, and here are the amounts they owe. So I could come in here and tweak the amount or accept the amount and hit process, and then they would be billed, their cards would be charged for that invoice that you created. And different companies manage this differently. Some companies will send the bill, and then 2 or 3 days later they'll then run the card. You can create the bill, you run the card, and then when you go to email, the bill will already show as paid, so that could be nice. So you've got to, you can do the timing of this, but I want to emphasize or clarify one point. This is populated when the customer has an invoice, not when they have, say, unpaid work during the current month. If work hasn't been invoiced yet, then the customer will not show up on the auto pay list until an invoice or bill is actually created. That. Okay. Um, so that's how the process auto pays. Then the next step would be single payments. That is, a customer sends you a check or calls you with a credit card, or you need to enter a payment. Um, so you come over here to single payment. Now I want to give a realistic example, so I want to come back here to find customer, and we build out Acme. So I want to look at now. Oh, let me pause for a moment. We were talking a bit ago about what's called reverse billing. When you do your billing process, it creates a batch. If you find a bunch of errors that need to be fixed, you can undo the batch and go and fix those in customer history and then redo the billing. You also, in each customer, have a list of their invoices. If you do the batch and you only have, say, 2 customers that need to be corrected, you could come into the customer's account, delete the invoice, and then that would put the work back into the billing system. You could then edit the history to correct the errors you saw, and then go through the billing process just for those 2 customers. All right, so this invoice is 1477 for Acme. When you do single payment, you can come here and you can search by invoice number. Now I'll put in 1477, hit find, and it doesn't work. You need the prefix there, which is CI for clip invoice dash 1477. Find. And now here is that amount of that invoice, and here's the total balance the customer owes. Here's the account, and if they're paying that amount, then you come in here and do check number, and then the program doesn't allow this to autofill, but there are browser settings, and I'm not sure what they are. I need to work with support on that, which will remember what you've put in to a field, and when you start typing, it will then show you a list of options. In that case, you put in a C and you'd see check number. You just click it. You don't have to type the full word there. And then I hit process, and now you've processed the payment. And then you do that customer by customer. You can come here to look for a customer. So if I want to find Bart Simpson, there's Bart. This is how much. Whoa, Bart, you're way behind. Let me clean up my AR, so we'll. And then process. Thank you, Bart. That helps. If a customer does not have a balance, if they owe you 0, they will not show up on this display unless you click enter prepaids. Now the reason this says enter prepaids is that often when someone is prepaying for the season or giving you a deposit, say for work you're going to do, um, they may not have a balance with you. So you can check that, and this gives you then everybody in the system. Um, so let me come down here, see if, let me use an example. So Bart just paid off, so we'll go and we'll do Bart again. Let me try this again. There he is. So he's got a 0. So that's the enter prepaids. Now over here you can put whether they pay with cash or credit card or ACH. If you do take credit cards through CLIPPay, when you click credit card and enter the information, it'll then pull up the screen where you can enter the credit card information, and it will remember that information. You can also, there's a checkbox for you to make that customer an auto pay if they've authorized you to do that. Okay. All right, so let's go back to some of my questions. Doesn't the invoice have a previous balance amount on it and then the paid work? Um, the invoice only has on it the work you've selected to bill for that month. The analogy I use is if you go to your auto mechanic and you go today and you get the oil changed and he hands you a bill and there's the itemized, oil, filter, environmental fees, recycling fees, etc., and it gives you a total. There's nothing on that invoice about the brake work you had done last week and you still owe some money on. Invoices are very, if I may use the term, very discrete in that they only they're focused on a particular transaction or set of transactions without really any reference outside of that. Unlike a statement, which is like your credit card statement. Your credit card statement would show a previous balance, if any, all the current activity including payments, and then the past due amounts or the total amount now due. So that's kind of the difference in other parts of our lives as consumers where we see invoices and statements. So an invoice really does not show in and of itself anything outside of it. Now, we do tweak that a little bit. So if I come back into Acme here and I view this invoice that is now paid, it's going to show then down at the bottom that a payment has been made and it's 0. It doesn't show anything about this payment, doesn't show a check number, doesn't show whether it was a credit card or not. It just shows that a payment was applied. So that is just showing that this invoice is paid. Yeah, so Susan, I'm not sure if that directly answers your question or is clear enough. We can talk further about that. All right, so let me okay, so back to Myra. It appears that your hide quantity line allows for a total amount of times we worked on the property. Just wondering why that can't happen with installments, 3 of 8, or show the 2 previous installments paid. I am sorry, I'm still not exactly getting what you're wanting to, what end result you're wanting. And so we'll have to talk offline about that or try it at the end of this. Okay, Gretchen, we want our installment to be on the invoice, but also want to show payments for those that use credit cards. So do I have to create an invoice before I can run auto pays, but I want the payment to show up on the invoice? Well, as you can see here, this is how a payment would show up on an invoice. It would show up down here at the bottom. In the process, Gretchen, what I recommend you do, you come through the bill, you do the billing process. Now, before you print or email, you have all of those within the system. So right now, if I go to invoice and I go to email invoices, I'm showing all of these invoices. See, notice here that emailed invoice for Acme is now showing paid here. So so what you can do is you've created these, you haven't sent them yet. You then go to process auto pays and you come in and notice here too, this amount has been changed because a payment has been made. You go through, check this off, hit process. Now when you go back to email invoices, the ones you just processed through autopays will show paid. And then when you email them, it will show the invoice as a paid invoice or $0 owed, and it will show the payment down here. Now again, it doesn't show credit card or anything, it just shows up the payment and a zero. So you should be able to get to the end result that you want, Gretchen, in doing that. Okay, can you see all the process? Okay, now, good question what I was coming to next. So you've entered payments under single payment, and you say, well, what payments have I entered today? That takes you over to the reports section. And in reports, there is a payment. Well, there are two ways to view payments. Payment report is one way. So you come here, and we do allow you to put a time frame. We have had requests from companies that might process payments 2 or 3 times during the day. Maybe they come in the morning and they run credit cards, and the mail comes and they get checks, and so they process the checks, and then at the end of the day they've billed out some more work and they want to run credit cards again. Well, they don't want one long list of all those transactions joined together. They want to be able to do each time period where they ran the payments individually, so that's why we let this time stamp show. So I hit show report, and here are my payments, and then hit export to Excel. Now notice here it's not showing the full, it's not showing that memo field. So just to keep that in mind, if you want to show the check number, it needs to go in that reference number field. This is one way to show the payments. We've had the request also to allow you to see these, like to print onto a printed form for a deposit slip, and that's been passed to development. Another way to see payments is to come to history. So again, we're customer reports history. So I just choose today, and I check only include payments. And now I hit show report. And so property name Acme Enterprises, the amount check number 5778, Bart Simpson, the amount check number 55897. Here's my total amount of payments today. This gives you a shade more information. I mean, it would be a longer report, but if you would like a different format or a different way to see payments, going to customer and history would be the way to do that. All right, so a couple other things before we move on to with QuickBooks. Now, one thing with the QuickBooks, much of what we've just covered is the same between Clip and, I mean, you've got to do that same initial invoicing stuff. All right, so we looked at single payment, credit memo. Credit memo is a way for you to reduce what a customer owes you without entering it like it was a payment. So let's say there was a dispute on the bill and you're going to give them a $1,000 credit memo. So you can come here and you can say resolution dispute, or whatever you might call. You can associate it with a particular job, and then it would affect the reports for those jobs, for sales for instance. Even though this doesn't link to QuickBooks, it does require an item here, so just choose something random. Here, this I think is just a programming thing, so it doesn't really go anywhere as far as billing out a clip. And then you hit process. Oh, please enter a date, of course. So now I've created a credit memo and his balance has been reduced by that amount. Additional charges we looked at. This is for situations where you have something you need to charge a customer for, and you can just find the customer, put the amount and description of what the extra work was, and then process. And when you hit process, it will then give you it will then put it in customer history and set it up to be billed. Unpaid invoices. This will show you all of the payments, all the invoices, sorry, that have not been paid. And you can come in, you can choose a date range. So let's say I want to choose No, I don't want to go back. December. So I just want to see where we're at as far as the December. So I hit show report, and this is showing me I have quite a few. I bet going to populate. Yeah, 114 unpaid, and then you can 215. Holy cow! And you can then search for the specific one, and then when you print, you could print out, just choose the one. But these could all be printed individually from within the customer under invoices. More email invoices. You can set up a late fee and fuel surcharge here. Those are then within the customer, set up under the properties for the customer. If you do charge a late fee, or if you do want to add the fuel surcharge, you'd come to more property information and choose yes for that. And then you're able to trigger that during the billing process to add that to the customer's bill. And that means by trigger, you come to more late fee. And this brings up then, so if it's 1 to 30 days past due, you can do one amount, 31 to 60, a different amount. If you choose to, you've got a description here, and then you would hit process, and it would then process this and add it to the work. You'd run this right before you do your billing in that. And same with the late fee, the fuel surcharge. And we've recently changed the fuel surcharge, so you can just do a one-time a month fuel surcharge for a set amount if you need to. Otherwise, you can assess fuel charges for a certain date, time period with certain jobs. So that, and this is somewhat similar to what you had then in CLIPitc. Okay. All right. Can you see how do I clear out old installments so I can start fresh in 2022? If the installments are showing up in here, you would then you come in to print at, oh, there's nothing in here. Okay, so let me go back, sorry. So I hit process installments again. Okay, so then I come into this, and here now are the installments. If these are all old ones, I can check this and hit do not invoice, and they're now removed from the list. They can be recovered if you need to, or you could hit delete installments, and that would remove any installments on the list. You don't have to go in and check anything, you just delete installments and it would remove those. Okay, I need to shift gears here, and now we're going to look at QuickBooks and CLIPitc. Okay, so as I mentioned, much of what we just went through is the same. So under invoice, you come in here, you set the dates. So you'll go to 131, and we'll go to the 10th as a due date there for the bill. You can do a cutoff date here. Options here are irrelevant. Some of these options are less relevant than others. I mean, include invoice notes, time in, time out, so transfer 0 transactions. I believe the prints include statements or invoices to be emailed is irrelevant here, and then process installments is the same. So we'll come here, process installments. Now the difference is, instead of saying print, it says generate. Now, I don't know what the significance of that difference, but that is the difference. Okay, so I've got a bunch of duplicate installments here, so I'm going to hit the delete installments. And then I'm going to hit process. And then we come back to generate edit. And here is all the work to be billed. Like before, you can click the pencil to edit information here as needed. What you would do then, and I'll just do it for one customer to speed the process a bit. So I want to bill Acme. Okay, so whatever you want to bill, you would check all and hit generate. Now when you hit generate, the same thing occurs. Down here, it now creates an invoice batch. And because there's only one there, refresh pretty quickly. This is new. You're able to actually email or print a bill out of CLIPITc in addition to printing or emailing from QuickBooks. Now, what that allows you to do is email bills from here, which would then enable your customers to pay online with ClipPay, and you'd save yourself some money given QuickBooks fees for credit card processing. But we're not done yet. When you hit generate, it sent information out to the void. So it's out there sitting in space, cyberspace. And what you need to do then is on the QuickBooks side, you come here to File, and you go to Update Web Services. Now, if you have a newer version of QuickBooks, this says App Management. But then there's a sub-menu for app management, including the Update Web Services. You click here, and it now pulls open this screen, the web connector that Intuit developed. Here's the CLIPITc copy I'm working with. I check the box here, and I hit Update Selected. Now what happens is any new customers entered into either program will now go to the other program. If you've changed information, and again, information needs to be changed in QuickBooks, and then it will flow into CLIPITc. If you change a phone number in CLIPITc, it will not update QuickBooks, and in fact, whatever's in QuickBooks will replace what's in ITC when there's a difference, and it sends over the bills. So now the process is complete. If I billed everybody, this would take longer, so I hit exit here. And I come in and I want to go to Acme. And here now is Acme Tires. And here is the latest bill I've sent over. So here are the cleanup leaves, installment. And you have the same options to enter payments here. So you go to new transactions, receive payments, or as we saw in CLIPITc, you're able up here under single payment to enter payments, and they likewise will post to QuickBooks from here. So we could go to Acme Tires. They owe this amount. Now this is an example where it shows you what you've entered in that field before, and that means you're able to not have to type it every time. Then payment method will be check, and I hit process. Okay, again, to go back to QuickBooks, if I want to update this, come to File, Update Web Services. It opens up the web connector. Check it off and hit Update Selected. Again, there's some basic things it goes through. So if you've modified your item list or your class list, that will update in the other program. Okay. All right. Oh, that's interesting. I'm not showing the payment. Okay, let me okay, let me grab everything. Okay. Well, this is a good illustration. Occasionally, it doesn't come over. Now, when that happens, and in fact, after you do billing with QuickBooks, you can come to the QuickBooks sync log. And this then would tell you and then tell us. So here's the payment. It says that it's, oh no, that's not the right date on that. But I hit sent here, and this shows what's been sent. Errors here show errors. So this is what support can interpret as to what's going on and why there was a failure. Now this says the 12th. Let me go back in and see if I had I probably had my invoices dated for the 12th. Yeah. Okay, so we would have to then get involved to investigate. And often it's as simple a matter as an item not being aligned correctly or something else, but support's very adept at quickly doing an analysis of that. Credit memo. Um, from a recent conversation, the credit memos between Clip and QuickBooks are a little dicey. So if you're going to use credit memos with QuickBooks Desktop, and I think also online, I suggest doing those directly in QuickBooks, not via Clip. Process auto pays are the same. Additional charges are the same. We looked at the sync log. Mapping, if you do update your items in QuickBooks, when you sync, you're going to get a message that you need to map it again, and that allows you to update the item in the corresponding service in Clip, and everything will be kosher after that. Unpaid invoices, this will show that to you again, but from the Clip side. Um, and then email invoices, late fees, so you've got similar features there. Now tomorrow we'll deal with some of the reports, the financial reports that are a little bit different in CLIPITc versus when you bill with QuickBooks, but we'll see that under reports. Okay, so let's see, I'm falling way behind on questions. So, okay. All right, is it possible, okay, Lynn, is there a way to do a bank deposit for the grand total deposits for the day? Well, there's a way to get a report showing you the grand total, and so for instance, to go back to the other copy of Clip, when you go to the report and payment report, if I wanted to see everything that was done all day or on a past day even or for the month, so I mean we could come in and start January 1st. Oh, haven't done a lot this month. So here now is the amounts here, and you could then export to Excel to get the report of the payment. So here now is your report of all the totals, so you can run the total here for the deposit, or even perhaps print this out and attach it to the deposit slip for that. Can you add multiple installments with different names under the same customer? Yes, you can. So um, if you go to a customer, and we'll go to Bo, come to properties. So here he has a maintenance and a contract here. We could add a package. Now, because we do have these patterns, I probably have to choose one of these. So I'll choose this installment, but I'm going to tweak it. So I come here, and this will be snow installment. I would just delete these obviously and come down, and this is going to be, I'll do these individually. So 300, oops. So now I've got another installment to which I can then add the appropriate jobs for that. And you can have as many as you want here. All right. If they pay in ClipPay, will it be included in QuickBooks? Yes. So Doug, what it will do then is it will create a line item for the what we call the programming fee or the convenience fee. Oh, sorry, I'm not reading your question correctly. If they pay in ClipPay, will it be included in QuickBooks? Yes. It will be just like any other single payment. You would come in here. Okay, let me go into the QuickBooks version. So you come to single payment. You would find the customer. Go to select payment method, whatever the payment method is here, and then enter the information and it would post to QuickBooks. So it would show the payment in the corresponding customer's account. If it was run in ClipPay or if you entered a check. What version of QuickBooks does Clip currently interface with? Um, the most current it does, and it goes back. I mean, I'm in 2017, so it's working at least that far back. Um, I imagine you might not be able to run it with a super old one, but I don't know. I've not been told that. If you have a question about your specific version, you can shoot that information to, or that question to support@clip.com. Say, hey, we have got QuickBooks 1998. Will it work? And they'll let you know. When you close the month, do you generate the same type of ST report, one that shows tax, sales tax? That's under reports. We'll officially deal with tomorrow, but it's a simple question, so I will. Yeah, so under reports here, you've got sales tax report, and then you can create it for a date range, and then you've got the sales tax non-taxable to include in the report. So what I'll do is I'll go back and look at one of these past ones just to see. This is a summary report. Oh, well, this is, yeah, so here's the sales tax. And you can do it more detailed too. So then, yes, you can. When do invoices actually post to the customer's account? When they are printed or emailed? When they are printed. When you come in here and you hit print, that's when the clock starts for generating and aging the invoice. So if you go ahead and hit print and you never email it or you never send it, it's still going to start aging. And again, that is what changes the billing system from previous versions of Clip. Previous versions of Clip were predicated on a 30-day billing cycle. And so every end of 30 days, you would tie a neat bow around the billing cycle and start from scratch the next day. This is different. You bill out as you go. I mean, you can bill once a month, and it's kind of analogous then to a monthly billing cycle, but the aging is tied to when you actually create an individual invoice for that. Okay, can you toggle the invoices to also have the overdue time amount 030? Um, when you say toggle the invoices, I'm not sure in what screen you're looking for. I mean, in the unpaid invoices, you could say, okay, I want everything. So you say, okay, today is January 12th. So you want to look December 12th. Everything before November 12th would be 90 days or over before October 12th. So you just come in here and do, November 12th, and then I wonder if it'd show everything. Yeah, so it looks like it's going to generate everything up through 60 days ago. So if I wanted 90 days, I have to go back one more month. But yeah, you can kind of, in this view of unpaid invoices, look for old accounts. I mean, assuming this is going to finish creating. Um, oh, okay. So here, yeah, 264 pages. Um, Again, the overdue amounts. I mean, the one other area. Wow, 678. I need to get into collections. When you're in a customer here and you go to invoices, you can from the customer account run what. Why is this not saving? Let me just see. Sorry about that. Usually it should be giving me an error message. Well, I'm going to hit undo. Um, all right, so in the customer, you go to invoices here, and there is a print statement option. When you hit print statement, it's going to generate what in an invoicing environment is, as you can see, a list of all the unbilled or unpaid or partially paid invoices. Now, this is again showing, it's not showing what's 30, 60, 90 days past due, it's showing everything that hasn't been paid. And if we go back into the customer's, go back a screen, then you see all these unpaid, unpaid, unpaid. Um, it won't, again, it's if you are looking at invoices, it's not going to tell you much, if anything, about anything outside that specific invoice. I mean, you can view invoices that are 30 days or 60 or 90 days past due through the unpaid invoices section, but um, um, otherwise, no, invoices don't tell the client anything about outstanding work. What is the pulsing red orange circle above customer? Um, okay, let's see. I'm not seeing that. Let me come into find customers, see if there's something here. Typically, that means there's a video or something associated with that screen, maybe some learning. Just click on it, and it might then show you what it was referring to. Then it'll disappear or shrink. Um, so, Keith, that's the best I can tell you about that. Okay, any other questions about billing? As I said, tomorrow we're going to be looking at reports. And what we'll try to do is spend enough time looking at the built-in reports that we can then talk about how to do custom reports out of the program. Oh, it came up with okay, let me go back and check. Someone says they think that circle showed up when I um, hadn't saved that property. Thank you. Okay, so let's try that again. So here's the maintenance installment. Okay, I'm not going to fill this all in, but I'll just fill in 1 month. Oh, that thing. Okay, there it is. Well, let me save that. Oh. Okay, so let's click on this. Oh, oh, there it is. Properties tab. We'd like to introduce you to a few of the fields. Now, so it's just a training tool. Okay. ITC is invoicing only, no statements. Um, Rob, it will generate a statement, but again, it's limited to when you print. Now, let me kind of give you a preview of the future. If we go into a customer, this again is for, I'm going to my account here. You have within the customer a billing format menu here. This now doesn't go anywhere because this is part of what development is building out. So they put this in before it's kind of like you're laying tracks for a railroad. You've got a bunch of the tracks already laid, but it really doesn't go anywhere. It's not finished yet. So this is part of those tracks that are already laid. On a customer by customer basis, you will be able to select how you want that customer's billed, either via statement or invoice, because typically you have some accounts that you want to always invoice. Commercial accounts are a typical example of that. But then you have other residential accounts that can be statements. So you choose that. And then this controls what happens when you go to invoice. So when I go to invoice, if I have some work that needs to be billed, it will always do it on a statement, not just when I print, but what's emailed to me. And if you notice back in history here, or under invoices, sorry, all of these are invoices. So if I view this, it has an invoice number on here. And it says invoice. It's not a statement. So basically, there's um, three ways to do a bill. You print it, it's a statement, but for the same information, you email it or you come into the customer's account and it is displays as an invoice. That's going to be fixed. And again, that's one of those current things that development is working on. And the way development operates, they do what are called sprints. There's a 2 week time period where they've set specific goals, either to add a new feature during that 2 weeks or do work toward adding a new feature that might take a longer time period. They've been working on this statement invoice thing for a while, and if I understand correctly, it should be available in 2 to 8 weeks at one of the ends of one of those sprints. And when new things happen, the little new word up here might have a little red dot next to it, in which case you click here and it shows you then what's recently been added in the web program or in the app in some cases. Um, Likewise, again, I think we mentioned this, the little question mark is helpful because this takes you to our help desk and you can type in a topic and look at. So if you wanted to do a little homework tonight and look at custom reports before tomorrow, you go custom report, and here you've got running and defining custom reports in CLIPITc. Now you also, when you come to this page, you've got some overall stuff, like here's a link to videos on ITC. Here's kind of a new user tutorial showing all the articles to cover a lot of the basic information, and then here are a long list of the different topics you can scroll through. Okay, is there a recommended size for a logo inserting on the setting page? I tried, I'd say Gregory, email support about that. They might have the recommendations. I know that in CLIPItc, often the file size of the logo could cause some problems. If we do our billing, accept payments through CLIP, is it records a total amount or individual basis? In CLIP, it's individual amounts applied to individual customers, and in being transferred to QuickBooks, it goes to the account to which, so if you entered a payment in CLIP for John Smith, when it posts to QuickBooks, it posts to John Smith's account. Otherwise, it would go into, I think it's unapplied funds. I forget the exact QuickBooks terminology for that. If I heard you quickly mention these classes will be available on YouTube, is there a specific time frame and link I can get from you? Maureen, yes, I was talking to Trevor yesterday, and he said that they should be available end of day tomorrow. He is not. He's off on Friday, and by the way, our offices are closed on Monday for the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday. And so, but yes, what I'll do is Friday morning when I've got the link, or if I have them later in the day tomorrow, I will then email you the link to all 4 of the YouTube videos. He may bunch them together, so you might just get one link to that bunch of them. Okay, well, let's call it a day. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and we'll look at reports. So I hope all of you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll talk tomorrow. Thanks.